Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Rotary Club meeting, Eco Club meeting for Saturday, January the 8th, 2022. It is a privilege to be here in this space online, and I welcome all of you who are joining us today and those who will join us in a few minutes, because that almost always is the case. So starting with our land acknowledgement, we gratefully acknowledge the traditional custodians of Shawelican, the Hulkaminam speaking peoples who hunted and gathered in this area. We respect their caring connections to each other and the places where we all live, work, and play. As a Rotary Club, we also practice the four-way test, which you see on the screen. And this is a test of character. And let me tell you, some of us are characters indeed, but we ask ourselves first, is it the truth? And that's a way of integrity and a way of honesty and a way of dependability. We ask ourselves, is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And so our topic of decluttering and resiliency is definitely beneficial to all concerned. Welcome to Lisa and Corey. Good morning. We invite you to participate and have fun in this Zoom meeting. Please use the chat or raise hand and react, because we're listening, we're asking questions, and we're taking notes. Today's topic is tracking our footprint of stuff. And anyone who's been out hiking in the snow, that is the first thing that came to mind when the weather changed this winter, was seeing all the activity and who's been where, the animals, the people. So what is our footprint exactly when we're carrying a lot of stuff is what I'd like to know. And I've invited our special guests, Tobin and Sarah Smith of Mr. and Mrs. Smith Studios here in Shawnigan Lake. And they are the hosts of the Business Growth Initiative. This is a weekly workshop series that's starting next week, and it's to do with business resiliency. So we are super excited to hear from them. And I'm going to breeze through these announcements so that we can give them lots of time. Suzanne Ataji, you are on deck as a member of our sponsor club, the Rotary Club of Duncan. And I'd like you, just as we get towards the end of the announcements, to speak to the initiative that you've got going and how we can maybe meet you with some of our decluttered items. Thanks. So stay tuned. So here's a thought for the day. This is something that was posted on our social media earlier in December, and it's from a website called Positively Present. And here's some of the wishes that we have for all of you and for our members who couldn't be with us today, but will be listening to this recording. We wish for hope. We wish for fun-filled and unique experiences, creative courage for new ideas, and comforting moments of peace, but also bright spots in the midst of winter's darkness. And some of you who are new to our club might be asking, well, who are we exactly and what are we all about? And especially for our guests today. So we are a group that facilitates connections, and we're definitely an outdoors club. So this has been super helpful during the pandemic, which is when we formed. So we've had to work with all of the shifting provincial health orders and trying to keep our members safe, and also do lots of outreach. So here you can see some of the ways we explore our surroundings. And we're also in an active growth phase. So I'm just putting that out there once again, that we are, January is the vocational month for Rotary. So you'll see that here's a listing of some of our talents and experiences that our club members bring to the table, so that together we can serve to change lives. And I've added the graphic that Rotarians do it with integrity. And so this is one of the highest values that we all have in common. So we are also people of action. And this was a highlight from this last fall. Our president, Steve Alskins, took us up to the top of Mount Baldy on a hike where we could get some perspective and ask ourselves about our journey together and our leadership journey and our responsibility to nature and sustainability. Steve, I hope I've summarized or at least tried to touch on some of our values there. And here's some practical ways that we are planting seeds in the community. We're reaching out through CVRD Parks and Trails. We want to advocate for our parks and spaces. And this is on also the front page of the focus this month, is the land around Mount Baldy that we'd like to be a voice for. And also to be influencers for respectful use of all of our natural spaces, as well as our indoor spaces, which we have cluttered up apparently. We're planting good seeds and hoping to work to beautify our community. We'd like to bring people together in creative ways, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our guest speakers today, as you are, I'm sure. And we support all kinds of eco initiatives. So that's something we'd like to host a resource page for, and that's a work in progress. And lastly, you'll see early this spring, and once the snow melts, of course, we'll be working on cleaning up Shawnigan and facilitating zero waste events once the health orders allow for those. So once again, we are small, but we are growing. We are new, but we are also putting down roots and expanding our reach. So if you think you're too small to change the world, let's join together, because together we can. So please follow us at some of these links and resources online. And here's a way of contacting us anytime. So now I'm going to just bring it back to our guest speaker, but also invite our sponsor from the Duncan Rotary Club, Susanna Taji, to tell us about what they're doing to kick off the new year.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for letting me join your club. I'm excited for your club. It's absolutely amazing. The concept and being the first eco club in Canada is amazing. So congratulations. Our auction event is coming up mid-February, February 17th to be exact. And the Duncan Club of Rotary, the Rotary Club of Duncan, it's early, used to hold a gala event. So it was an in-person gala event. Apparently very, very well attended, raised a whole pile of money, and of course everything stopped with this new pandemic, and our leader Jim Kosh made the decision that, well, we should still have it, but let's find a creative way to do it. So he did a whole bunch of research, and the committee got together and we looked at an online auction. Now we weren't sure how much people would like to do an online auction. Lots of people like to touch things, they like to look at things, they can't, if you describe an item, will they really understand what it is? So we held a garage sale. So we asked our members to donate things that are unwanted, unused, and we thought we'd do it as a test. So a year ago, last fall, we held our first garage sale. And we weren't expecting to raise very much money because we just wanted to do it as a test. And we actually ended up doing very well. We raised between $2,000 and $3,000. That gave us a mailing list. So people who turned around and bid on things are registered for the auction, the online auction. And we used Octria, the website, very, very slick website, to take pictures, put a description in, and then it also tracked all the items and you could watch bids live. So fast forward to our gala last year, we asked our members to go out and really turn around and ask those businesses that have always supported Rotary in the past if they would be willing to donate again, gift certificates, products, brand new items, because it's a gala, so we wanted new items for it. And we also invited our Rotarians to provide experiences. For instance, Michael Lee, who owns a platoon boat on, is it Lake Cowichan, Kim? I believe so, yes. He offered a day out on his platoon boat. And of course, that was a very hot item. I tried to bid on it and it just went crazy, which was awesome. So at the end of our gala, we had people who actually donated money as well. Well, I didn't get my item, but I'd still like to donate to Rotary and the causes. So, and we sold tickets to the gala event, and our president, Greg, turned around and he got people like Jeff Downey, who owns the Firehouse Grill, to do to show you how to make a special drink, a special cocktail, and we had different organizations that we've supported in the past do a little talk about how they've been impacted by Rotary. And these little video clips were amazing. My husband, who doesn't have a lot of, he fidgets a lot. He lasted the whole hour and he actually really enjoyed it. He thought it was a wonderful event. In the end, we raised gross just over $38,000 in one night, which was substantial. So fast forward then to May, I'm a curler. Please don't hold that against me. But I curl, and our curling club, because of COVID, only had a 2-month season the first year I moved here. So I moved here a year and a half ago and managed to get on a team, and it was hurting financially. There's infrastructure things that have to be paid for. So I approached our Rotary Club to say, hey, could we do a joint garage sale with our with the curling club? And we worked out a formula as to who would get how much. And we really tried to encourage them to get new items because they would get a larger split of it versus just a garage sale. And we ended up with over 500 items, and they were all throughout the ice that had now was taken out because it's May. And in that fundraiser, that garage sale, and a lot of people were super happy to get rid of their stuff in their house. I'd rather have my old stuff go to you. We ended up raising just over $18,000 on mostly used items. It was phenomenal. So we're doing our next gala event in February. We're now in the middle of all the organization. Our Rotarians are going out and getting their sponsors and their donators, and we're going to start inputting probably in maybe this weekend, even as early as this weekend, items. And then we have 3 mailing lists to send out to people. We've got from the original garage sale, we've got the gala, and we've got the curling club website, because Octria tracks all those people that registered, because you have to register in order to bid. And now we're going to send them out a note saying, hey, we're having another auction. And we're thrilled.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I'd like to tie this back to our club. I put some notes in the chat because I understand how Octria works and was able to set up the event for the first 2 for Duncan Rotary. So I can totally see collaboration in the works for this year. It all depends on just some logistics on our end here in the Shawnigan area, but we have some very brilliant minds on the call today and that will be watching this recording. So I'm super excited, and I can walk anybody through questions that they have about how to submit an item, how to do good photography for the items. And Suzanne here is a whiz at the actual write-ups that really hook people and drive up those bids. She was just phenomenal with her wordsmithing. So thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing, and I appreciate that time. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speakers. And now that you've heard some of the things that Rotary can do, maybe you will be interested in spinning some experiences and opportunities that you have, Tobin and Sarah. So take it away.
I admit she actually looked at me and said, I see your brain working, because my brain's still now on the Duncan and the auction.
He's
and
like,
what can we donate? Who do we know also that we've done? Because we also sit on the board with the Shawnigan Lake Community Association. So that we're familiar with a lot of what the businesses have here, how it could donate for the welcome. So my brain is, I've already digressed. I apologize for the next 5 minutes. I'm brainstorming on, what can we do?
So I'll start with who we are. Thank you so much for inviting us to chat this morning. It was actually quite funny when I saw the topic. I was like, what can we talk on that? And then we thought about it, and we actually came up. We actually have a few things we can chat about it. But first, I'm Sarah, and this is Tobin. We have Mr. and Mrs. Smith Studios, which is our portrait studio that we've been having. I guess we've had it for over 10 years officially. We moved here to Shawnigan literally 2 weeks before the world shut down in 2020. And so life took a different path than we expected and gave us lots of introspection. In our photography studio, we specialize in branding portraits. And we started actually with glamour back 10 years ago. We did glamour without the 80s. So we were bringing, it was the beginning of self-care revolution. And I had a 1 and 3-year-old in my fanciest clothes, had spaghetti stains on them. And I needed something to feel like an individual human again. And so we actually started doing glamour photography. So I did hair and makeup, we styled people, they came in for this beautiful experience and they walked away with something we weren't expecting, which was a boost in their confidence and just a renewed sense of self.
Actually, I want to jump in. I'm going to digress a little bit because this actually is going to relate to something I think we can talk about as the topic today. I was an everything photographer. I did weddings, babies, I won awards, all kinds of things, but it was only when I went and I remember hearing this phrase, study other disciplines. And it was originally from a photographer. He said, if you're a wedding photographer, don't study other wedding photographers, study beauty and fashion, bring that to your weddings because what you're doing has already been done. And so I actually had the opportunity to go learn from a world-renowned photographer out of Australia. She was the 2-time portrait photographer of the year. And I got to go learn from her in person. The intention was to bring back to what I was doing as corporate portraits and weddings. She was mostly all about families. Women's portraiture and families, but inevitably we made that our business. But the idea was to study other disciplines. And that's, I see how that's going to apply here. Is just to give a little hint, I think, where this dialogue is going to go about what we can do as opposed to what we think an eco-Rotary Club may do versus how do we study other disciplines and bring that to maybe the next possible venture endeavor we can do. So I just wanted to add that where we came from was study other disciplines.
Yeah. And so then we shifted gears as our studio, we kept getting more and more women entrepreneurs and coaches, consultants, real estate agents. That was really actually, and financial experts. So all of a sudden people were coming in for branding portraits. So our business shifted really into branding and having tons and tons of conversations with a bunch of other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And he is an amazing photographer. And I decided to take some of my gumption and run our business. And so it was quite a learning curve for me that way and trying to figure out how to run our own business. So then when we did photography and we ran our studio in Vancouver for 8 years, and then we came over here and then everything changed because the pandemic hit. And our plan to keep running the photography in Vancouver and traveling back and forth and everything really shifted for us. And so we decided, part of it was, I like to explain that we moved over here because I needed the Netflix life. I was really stressed out, overrun, crazy Vancouver woman, like entering her 40s at the edge of her rope. And I needed, my brain, peace and quiet. There we go. And so when we moved to Shawnigan, I wanted that, the movie goes, go into a small community, there's feeling, there's all this wonderful stuff. And then the world shut down and we're like, oh, how do we get involved? So, and then through a funny way, Tobin got his, we live in Shawnigan, this is the story. Tobin goes and gets his haircut at the barber shop. He mentions to Roy that he's looking for a way to kind of give back to the community because we have all these little things that we do, but right now we can't do anything. Does he know anyone? And he's like, oh, you should talk to this woman, Marion, not telling us that it's his mom. And then so we started that conversation and got involved with the SLCA and kind of started with their events. And that was kind of how we got to be able to be involved in the community here and the growth there. During the quiet time, we also were starting to see a lot of our clients who would come to us for photography. We offered extra workshops after that because we're like, now you have these beautiful photos, but people are like, what do I do with them?
Free workshops.
So we would offer free workshops in our studios about content creation, about branding. When you would come for the purchasing session with Tobin, so you have the photo shoot and then you come back and you look at your photos, he would offer lots and lots of different ideas on how to use them, where to use them, text to use, branding, all of it. So we decided it was time to diversify a little bit. And over the last year and a half, we've been working on how that looks. And 6 months ago, we started the Business Growth Initiative officially in, I guess that was May. That was when we finally got the right name that made everything make sense and really started to put together how it's going to work. And so the Business Growth Initiative is basically a small business and self-employed support group, is really the most basic way to explain it, where we host weekly micro masterminds where people of all different disciplines can come together. We learn together by watching a book summary, which is what Kim mentioned in the beginning, that big book library. So we have one book week that we watch together. And then it's usually about 10 to 15 minutes long. Then we have a series of 5 questions to set an action plan for you. And then you go into a breakout group with the rest of with a small group of people, and you talk about your action plan, and then you get tried and true practices from other people in the group. So we're really excited about what the Business Growth Initiative is growing to be. And so through all of that, Tobin and I have been lifelong learners. Like we've been married for 25 years, and way back in the 19s, as our kids would say it, we would take our $40 that we earned at our jobs when we were 19 years old, and we would drive down to Seattle and get our Zig Ziglar tapes. And we were always just in self-learning. And so I think there's, to kind of get to today's point, we have a couple different ideas about decluttering and the footprint and how that impacts us.
So actually something I'll add and interject in here, kind of going back, is often what we did, even the reason we started doing women's photography the way we did, was we had a belief that everyone is beautiful and everyone deserves to see themselves that way. And primarily it was a lot of moms were seeing, judging themselves in front of the mirrors. And I wanted to create a generation of young women who would grow up not needing Dove commercials to tell themselves they're beautiful. And I knew that we can't tell 3- and 5-year-olds that, they wouldn't get it. But if we help just the parent, because of course our kids will do as we do, not as we say. If we say don't litter, but we throw litter out of the car, which are they going to do? So we need to create examples. And so this was made around, right from the beginning, even our photography, regardless of how who I got to learn from, was about consciousness engineering. It was already about mental shifting. We used photos as a way to help them change how they saw themselves, but the goal ultimately was about changing the way we think. And that kind of leads to ultimately why we have for years, even before we gave it the name, Business Growth Initiative. And I actually have a one-on-one program I walk people through called the Unshakable Foundation Program, which is all part of consciousness engineering. And one of the things actually is the book summaries, which for those who are, well, Kim, you've been in our book summary, one adding this week, if you haven't had time to read the entire
Magical Art of Tidying Up.
Yeah.
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo's book is actually, we're going to actually have a summary of that book is going to be in the book library that you can read the summary or listen to the audio only of it. And part of the guide is efficiency. A lot of what we bring to this is the idea is sometimes we don't need to all take the same 3 hours. I want to take my decades of learning into your days, or my months of learning into your minutes. And that's how we get to share it with each other and go through what we often refer to as radical collaboration. There's no holding back. And part of that conscious engineering, as it evolved with both the Unshakable Foundation Program and the Business Growth Initiative, is where we start, right? It all begins in our brain. We can watch Marie Kondo's TV series on Netflix and sit there and judge ourselves, why can't we get rid of stuff? Or we can go through parts of the book, even the summary, and think, well, shouldn't I just be able to get rid of my stuff? But what's not often talked about is actually, I always forget the name of it. It was, she was actually spent, before she started, even wrote her book and bringing this movement, was that she was actually spent 5 years as an attendant at a Shinto shrine, observing and learning. So she had a mind shift coming into this. It wasn't just she started getting rid of stuff. She actually observed for 5 years. And sometimes we hold ourselves to judgment. Why can't I get rid of my stuff like this woman who's telling us to? But she actually went through a mental shift for 5 years of being a service attendant. And so instead of thinking she's the rule, she was the exception. So where do we start with our own brain? Which would be the longer term impact if we got rid of the stuff we have now, or if we changed our mind shift around the future things we're going to acquire. And so that's why ultimately it's all about what we have right now. So instead of getting rid of the stuff we have at home, what if we just change the stuff that we acquire?
Being hard on yourself about having stuff, like the idea of another one of our favorite books that we actually would read in the car with the kids was Jay Shetty's
Think Like a Monk,
which is a fantastic book written by, I mean, it's his whole experience of a monk and what he learned as it. And he's a younger guy. And one of his concepts is on detachment. So I find it really interesting. I think that it's actually come up to me. I love when things come up to you in different spaces over and over. You're like, obviously this is the lesson I'm supposed to be listening to because it keeps coming up. So lately it's been brought to my attention that I have absorbed definitions of words and cultural experiences that I don't actually understand. So the other day we were having a conversation about Stoicism and philosophy, and someone was like, well, what's the definition of philosophy? And in my head, I'm like, isn't the definition of philosophy philosophy? And it's just this generally known essence of a word. Like I later looked it up and now it makes more sense. So now I've gotten a little obsessed about looking up like Latin roots and stuff. But this idea of I had a general sense of what detachment was. And detachment to me was this like all or nothing. It's like to live a detached life means I'm a minimalist and I don't need stuff and I don't have to want for things. And then I realized, like Jay Shetty put it such a beautiful way. And I think we listened to it like 3 times because we're like, oh, we need this point. So the way that he kind of modernized the definition of detachment is that you are welcome to have and want the stuff, but look at it more and not resent the stuff and not be angry that it might be taken away, but think of all your stuff like a vacation or a rental car. So when you're on vacation, you don't show up on vacation on the very first day. Sometimes we feel that way on the last day because we're like, I don't want it to end. But on the first day, you're not like, oh, I'm on this vacation and it's gonna go away. And it like, no, you're on your vacation. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna enjoy every minute that I can that I'm on it. Or you're driving the rental car and you're like, this is a great car. I'm going to enjoy. Look how fast it goes. Like we took our kids went to Alberta and we got a big SUV because that's what you need to drive when you're in Alberta in the winter. And the kids were in the back seat. And they're just like, this is amazing. There's so much room. But it didn't mean when we got home that, our little Honda Fit was terrible. It was just the rental car was temporary and that's okay. You can enjoy it while you have it. But when we returned it, we weren't like, oh.
Is actually in that vein. So one of the things we offer in the Business Growth Initiative, and this is actually, because we have 2 memberships, there's a paid one and a free one. Even the free one gets to attend what we call the Business Social, but it's like SOUL, like we all have souls, because part of the idea here is there's 4 prosperities. There's financial, physical, mental, and spiritual. So we like to find a balance in all 4 prosperities. So one of the things we offer is once a month, it's called the Business Social, and we have a particular topic where I bring writings from numerous religions. So I'll actually have quotes on detachment or on generosity from the Bible, the Kitab Yaqdas, the Quran, the Dhammapada, and we study them. So actually one quote that I wanted to share here, I was realizing as Sarah was talking about that, this one was from 2 months ago. Our Business Social was on detachment. And this was one quote from the Baha'i Faith that was, I find it here, detachment does not consist in setting fire to one's house or becoming bankrupt or throwing one's fortune out of the window or even giving away all of one's possessions. Detachment consists in refraining from letting our possessions possess us. And so sometimes it's really neat to look at how each of these religions have a spiritual teaching, these spiritual virtues that have been consistent through all the ages. In that idea of like love is love, that there's a similar meaning behind them. And so we're going with that in the idea of what Sarah was saying is if we treat our possessions, we can treasure them, but not in that attached where they possess us, but in a rental aspect of everything in this world. The best time to be materialistic was when we were in the womb, because we're on our way to this world, whereas the rest of this life is on our way to the next, where we're on our way from stuff. Is how can we honor the stuff without it ruling us? So do we need the new iPhone, or can we every year as it comes out, or can we even until it actually has a problem, can you wait 5 years unless we need this process? So one of the things that we've implemented.
Okay, so I will, let me just confess that we are recovered materialists.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my gosh. So just a little bit of history. So during the 10 years of having our portrait studio in Vancouver, I 8 years ago on January 2nd suffered a slow onset traumatic brain injury from a car accident that rendered me useless. I was in bed for 20 hours a day. He had to wake me up to feed me, to take me to the bathroom. he had to take care of our children and run our business. And somehow in that time when we were doing all of that, see, I got choked up because, well, but it's not sad tears. It's like, oh my God. We also made our studio go 6 figures that year. Somehow we were able to still in all of that show up, because I gave everything to our business and our clients, and he gave everything to everyone else. And he literally said to me one day when we were at the Lego store buying $500 worth of Legos, going, if I'm working this hard, I want something to show for it. And that was such an interesting, like that really stuck with me, of how like our mental set at that time, of how we were so in the way that you show success is material. You know, we reached goals we never thought we would, and we weren't fulfilled. And we were trying to fill that hole literally with Lego. You should see our house, it's full of Lego. Because that was the vice. He could build it with the kids. It triggered happy memories for him, you know, all those things that stuff does. So we are totally recovering materialists. And I actually think the pandemic helped us with that, because when we moved here, we left a lot of our stuff behind in Vancouver. I was trying to get out of that survival mode and just leave that behind. So we actually gave away like half our stuff.
Well, we also didn't move with toilet paper. So of course we moved here during the start of the pandemic, and we were those people who had to buy 6 rolls for $20 from Amazon because
everyone else bought it from Costco.
We even left our toilet paper behind.
So we come from a place not of like just high thinking, but really doing as well. Of really internally investigating the why we needed to buy so much Lego. Why we felt so ruled by our stuff, looking at our children and their attachment psychologically to stuff versus holding on to the memory, the habitual hoarding that happens, because I grew up in a military family, so you don't hold on to anything. Everything is just go. And he grew up with a hoarder. And not a hoarder, not like super crazy, but you know, they do have a big farm and they build it up.
I'm more referred to as pack ratting.
Pack ratting, yes, there you go. So
someday your great grandchildren will want to see the art you made when you were 6.
No, they don't.
I like the Kim pointed at that.
Kim.
So okay, my point with the hold.
Yes. So now, I just wanted them to have a little more context.
The context was that I realized often we have, for those who aren't familiar with the term FOMO, it's fear of missing out. And sometimes we often buy things on the day or it's on sale, and we buy 20 cans of beans,
you're feeling,
although we'll only go through it short, or we have that need to satisfy and we need to explore, am I buying this thing because I want to buy it or because I want to have it? Because sometimes it's even this great study in the idea that as soon as you buy that new iPhone, the actual eagerness and satisfaction of not even wanting to have it is that you wanted to be the person who got to buy it. And so what I started implementing was, and it didn't work at first, it was a 24-hour hold. Before I could buy something, unless it was I needed groceries, whether it was a Lego set or even a new pair of shoes, I'd give myself a 24-hour hold once I saw it. And if I came back, I knew I still needed it that next day. It wasn't part of my fear of missing out. It was something legitimately worth exploring. Should I have it? Now, ultimately, I had to move that to a 72-hour hold for myself because I got to know myself, and even 48 hours was still like, but did I really need to get that 3rd pair of shoes? Let's be honest, it was like a 5th pair. But the idea was, by putting this hold, I was able to explore, what is this thing going to be in my life? I got to go home. Is this thing going to have a home? Do I need to get rid of another pair of shoes to put this one here? Because who needs that 6th pair of shoes? Is it just because of the sale, because I like the look of it? Will I actually hold on to it? And for myself implementing that 72-hour hold, all of a sudden we also start getting a lot less stuff, because I had to explore within myself. Am I getting because I just want to buy it, or because I know what I'm going to do with it? And that became, as far as my footprint that I'm leaving, let alone the stuff as I try to move out of the house and give away, I started making a significantly less footprint in our house and on the environment by acquiring less stuff, because I had to explore mentally, as I went through some conscious engineering, why am I acquiring this? There, we ran out. I honestly, one of the things in our program, in the Unshakable Foundation program, are called riffs. And basically, anytime you say to someone, oh, don't get me started on that, that's like a 20-minute TED Talk riff. And I have like 5 in my head, but I don't want to take up the time with my riffs. And I'd love to hear if there's any questions or to build this dialogue now that you've heard a lot about us and where we come from and what we do. Is I'd love to open this up to, if that's all right, a dialogue around the stuff and our footprint. And then maybe at the end, we can get into a little bit of studying other discipline thoughts about how we can bring that, not just what we expect environmentally, but looking at what do other groups bring to this topic that can have a bigger impact than we would have expected.
I have a quick example that's from the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, and then I'd really like to hear from everyone else on the call as well. So we had a student from Taiwan, tiny footprint, literally, like she was just a very small person and so disciplined. So she came with very little luggage. And at the end of her 3 months with us, she had produced, schoolwork and other things, posters and storyboards, you name it, beautiful work. But each item, she could hold it up and ask herself 3 questions. I won't even do it justice, but I remember one of them is, do I even need this? Is this useful to me going forward? Do I have room and space for it? No. So she would just jettison those things without a second glance. It was remarkable, the wisdom that she had at that young age to know who she was and what she needed to take going forward. So I just got goosebumps watching her. Wow. I raised my hands to that because that was just remarkable. So would anyone else like to share a story or an example?
Well, I actually have an interesting perspective as a teacher and as somebody who has a mind that has a creative way of looking at every item that I ever come across. And now I am just in the process of decluttering as a result of my aunt passing away, who was 92 and had a lovely life. So, it's all good. But as a result of having all of the things that because I'm her executor, all of the things that I have to deal with related to her. And she was, I wouldn't say a hoarder, but she really valued the things that she had. And she remembered stories about everything that she owned. That has then taken me back into the process of finally getting around to decluttering the things that my father left 10 years ago, which involved my childhood. So that's one side of things, is that I have this sense of connection that goes with the things that I have around me, and memories that are important to me. But beyond, and I know we all experience that, but then beyond that, I'm a teacher who uses anything that I can find, or at least, I guess I shouldn't say I pride myself in it. It is an inspiration to me to see the things that I have around me. So it's not so much going out and looking for things, but if somebody gives me something or I already have something, I will look at it and think, oh, that will become a story, or that will become a puppet, or that will become a musical opportunity, or whatever it might be. And that is a very difficult thing to deal with when you are trying to then, simplify. My life is not simple, and I make it that way. And in one way, I really love the opportunity that a grandchild will come over and I will have what it was that we needed just because of the conversation that came up. And she, it's so wonderful to sometimes have those things that you've been saving for years and years and years, and all of a sudden there's a reason to use it, and it's there where you put it. On the same token, I love the idea of what we're discussing today, and it's important to me. And so I'm in a dilemma, and I'm opening it up, if that's okay, to perspective and feedback from all of you.
I see that Tobin and Sarah have raised their hands, so I think they'd like to speak to what you just said.
Yeah, so actually just one idea to consider in these things, of course, the things you can change in magical instruments that you can reuse in ways is fantastic, and those don't work in this. One of the process I'm going to recommend here, which we've started implementing with our kids, is sometimes these things, you're like, what you drew at 3 was amazing, and I don't want to throw it away. Instead, now we need to acknowledge that digital clutter is a thing as well. But there is a time and place within an organization with how easy it is to have Dropbox or OneDrive, is that, and maybe we just need to teach people how to take better iPhone pictures, is that by taking a photo of it and documenting, there's also a place when you put a file to actually write a story and add a note. is that to actually take it, so even down the road when you forget the stories yourself, is that by taking a picture, especially at least of two-dimensional items, or sometimes even statues, if you, as long as you take a nice photo of it, there's a place for you to record that story down the road for prosperity, that even when you forget those details can be passed on. So we get to, without creating too much digital clutter.
Like writing on the back of a photo.
Like writing on the back of the photo is you get to take a photo of this thing without having to figure out where to store it as additional fire hazard in your house, and simply add notes beside it that can go for prosperity. And then it lasts infinitely without it having to be that thing there anymore.
Mhm.
So I have one little, like an interesting little story. So again, coming from military upbringing, like you just, if it really was actually kind of like the Marie Kondo method of when is, or even what Kim was saying, that is this useful? Do I need it moving forward, and will it fit? And a lot of the times that was it. And like I didn't realize how tidy we always lived because of that upbringing. So when I married Tobin, his father is a collector of stuff and has a large property to be able to do that on. And so one time we were going through all of our stuff, and Tobin and I met in a touring dance group, and we had these sweatshirts and I was getting rid of them. And my father-in-law at that point was just like, you can't do that. And he held on to them. Now, 5 years later, I was up in the attic and I found the box. So I grabbed the sweatshirt and I threw it on. And I came downstairs. Worst thing I should have never done that, because now 20 years later, it still comes up. That one sweatshirt that I used.
Aren't you glad I held on to that?
Aren't you
'Cause
so
wore
glad
it
I held
again.
on to that because you wore it again? And the question really goes though, and this is the thing you can think of when it's that, like that thing you've held on for so long and you've got to use. If you didn't have the thing, would you have missed it, or would you have found another creative solution? So I go through this, my daughter Jenny is so similar to you in that way, like the creative I unfortunately gave her the task of sorting recycling. Half the recycling ends up on her art desk. And so we've had to set rules. And so we've had to like figure out, instead of just being a dictatorial parent of no, get rid of that. I let her know, I'm like, you know what, your art station is beginning to look like garbage to me. So we need to figure out how to pick out the true treasures and recycle the rest. And so it's those different reframings of things, of how you look at things. And so you set rules, like I am allowed to collect X amount of stuff. It can fill this space. And once it's done, I need to reprioritize. So it's not, you know, I guess I used to live very much in like black and white, good and bad, like this or this. And I've realized that there's so much space in between of just setting your own expectations and guidelines. So it's okay to collect all the treasures you want, because what a wonderful feeling. Like I know that feeling with Isla when we're coming up with something creative and we're like, oh, we have exactly what we need to do this incredible thing. But there's also that feeling every time I look at her desk that it's just lots of stuff. So
well, I think it confuses the brain too. I think that's what we all know, is the whole purpose behind this is that our brains are confused as well. And we are not, we are empowered when we can let go of all the excess.
And sometimes instead of the absence, it's about the addition, right? When we change something on a diet, if we get rid of gluten and all we do is get rid of it, we have to replace it with something, if it's not intentional, something as unfortunate as gluten may seep back into that. Our daughter would walk around the trails here and she'd see garbage. Her goal was, there's a phrase also in the Baha'i faith, it's replace a thought of war with a stronger thought of peace, a thought of hate with a stronger thought of love. So she took that and would walk the trails, and if she found garbage, she'd want to pick up the garbage, but she'd actually replace it with one of her painted rocks of love. So if we even think of the stuff that's in our home that we take out, as opposed to now here's an empty space, we go, well, there's a big blank wall. And we start collecting stuff for it, is what can we replace that thing with, and always make sure it's a replacement versus just an absence of. I didn't know, as we started talking, Suzanne had put her hand up as well.
I had a very good friend move from the island to Alberta. I know it's crazy, why would they do that? But their family sat there. And she had collected, you know, she had lived in her house for over 20 years. So she could not bring herself to getting rid of things because everything had a story. So we went through her closet. She had 4 closets of clothes. And the big thing that I really noticed, being it's not my closet, being able to look at it from her perspective, is how much money she spent on things. When she looked at an item, even if she knew she was never going to wear it again, oh, but I spent this much on that, so I don't want to let it go. Well, we ended up, I think we ended up with about 20 large garbage bags full of clothes that she kept because either she had paid too much money for it, or she kept because one day she would be that size again. But ultimately, old fashion is never going to come back in style. It's not going to be the right color. It's not going to be the right fashion. So the Diabetes Society did very, very well, but she was able to move without all this stuff. And she said it was just very difficult to part with her stuff, but it was really, really amazing for her to move to Alberta and then not have this overwhelming amount of stuff that she was taking from one house to another. We also have had family that have passed away, and we've dealt with their estates. And, because of the age that I'm at, these people, basically because they had gone through the war and had a lot of stuff, they were collectors of things that they thought were super important, but ended up being, it's like meat trays and twist ties and tin foil and stuff like that. So I promised my kids that when I pass that I won't leave that legacy for them. And parting with things is not as big of a deal once you start. And I know it's difficult as a teacher. I can totally see how that would be or an art teacher or, anything, but it really doesn't make your life better to be able to open a drawer and you can barely open it because it's so full of stuff.
It's an interesting element that actually Marie Kondo does address a little bit, is the idea of actually the buying of the stuff was the gift and fulfilled it in itself, which when we ask that question, am I buying this to buy this or to have it, is even if I bought this Lego set and I still haven't opened it, but no longer has a place or time, or I've moved past Lego. So I'm coming back to the Lego example because she talked about how much I did love it, is that the act of buying it brought me joy. Standing there talking with the person in the Lego store shopping for it was the gift. So while it seems like, shouldn't I now build it to get the value from it? The value is actually the experience of buying it, which is why so often things are actually about the experience. And that's that consciousness engineering. That's that mental shift of, am I holding on to it because I spent so much money on it? That's thinking I didn't get the value I got from it. But I actually did get the value. I like the Kim showing her. Oh, Lego, yes.
Yeah.
I know that's that.
Yeah.
Is
retail therapy.
It is
real.
And retail therapy can also, when we acknowledge that it's not about having to keep the stuff, but it's actually just the shopping, whether it's window shopping or going and buying it and giving it as a gift to someone, or holding it in your house in the box for 2 days and then giving it away. If the gift was actually the shopping and the buying it, then you already have the value from it, no matter how expensive or cheap it was.
And then another thing that because again, kind of from our experience of recovering materialists, my part of the way that I helped with my guilt of being not able to be as active in parenting as I wanted to be during that 6-year period was stuff. Like I may not be able to be with you during the day. I may not be able to go to your Christmas concert, but here's a teddy bear. Here's a this, here's a that. You want those clothes? Whatever you want, I'm going to give it to you. And then my poor children, I overloaded them with stuff and they would get so overwhelmed. Then I'd be like, clean your room. And they're like, I don't know how.
I'm going to clean all the stuff you gave me.
Like, it was hard. And then I was always the sorter. Like when they were really little, I would do what I'd call the great toy sort. And so they would go to bed and I would pull all the toys out and I would sort through them and I'd put them back together and figure out, when they're little and they're transitioning a lot, you can do this. Now that they're older, I can't do it because they don't transition as much through toys and break them and things like they used to. But I had to, again, work with the psychology of it with my children. So my children are avid readers. Like Isla got 12 books at Christmas and she has read them all now, like full-on novels. And so we have a lot of books. And so the books, the stuffed animals, clothes, like especially when they're growing really fast, getting them through those things, but without making it feel like I'm taking things away from them. I'm stealing their stuff. I'm giving it away. So I had to work on like the psychology with her and him. We have a son as well. of, you know, you loved this X book, stuffed animal, whatever. Is it still a keep? Is it a storage, which gives them a little bit of transition time, or a giveaway? And the way that I explain the giveaway is you loved it. It's still in great condition. What a gift for someone else to get to appreciate this thing that feels like a burden to you now. Like this, our stuff starts to weigh us down. So what a beautiful thing for this thing's purpose in the world of existence, to get to give that to someone else. And especially teaching our children the art of charity, of giving it away. And so like, think, you know, especially with their toys that, you know, they used to get a lot of toys at Christmas from extended family too. We have lots of rules around gift giving now, and a system that we use that I'll share too. But they would get overwhelmed with stuff on Christmas Day and not know what to do with any of it. So then we'd have to go through their room and try to figure out where to put stuff and what to get rid of, and just that whole thing. So we would think about, like, you know, think about the children who don't have as much. Like, how amazingly special will this stuffed animal that you don't even care about be to that person? Like, let's do that. And so you get them, everything is kind of sales. So I would, you know, sell her on the idea of that feeling. And it was amazing to watch how detached and how that changed the decision process of what was important and what wasn't.
So I'd like to segue this into a tool that we use.
Yeah, well, that's what, yeah, it made me realize we talked to Kim about it, and it made me realize that it's one of the things, we only have 5 minutes, and one of the things we didn't talk about was we actually started empowering our children through asking them what they want.
So what this came from was, after the accident, a few years in, Sarah was ready to take on whatever debt. Even though, of course, we had a 6-figure studio, we had like 6 figures of debt between her medical debt and related stuff, but we were ready to take out a whole credit card. It meant giving our kids something special, like a trip to Legoland or Disney World.
It was spring break. It was a rough year.
Getting on the
Just
flight,
gonna do it.
she's like, we'll just do whatever it is. And I said, what if before we just book this, because Sarah did say, but then we do it and I get so angry when they don't appreciate it. Like, they don't act. I was like, and so you're like, well, why would we spend that much money, taking out a whole credit card and more debt to do something
to Disneyland and be angry at each other,
for you to be angry at them? What if we just ask them? So I actually sat down and I made them our very first questionnaire survey, and all it was asking them. The very first one I asked, it was the briefest of all of them. So I had questions was, if I could make one meal, I would make ... One of my favorite things to do is ... If I could choose the restaurant we go to, it would be, and follow-up question, and I would order. And if I could plan one day for my family without limitations, we would ... And they knew that we even said, this is anything. Like, if you want to go to Paris, the Great Wall of China, Mexico, Disneyland, whatever it is, put it down. And their answers saved us thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt. Our daughter didn't want her restaurant, even though they loved sushi, we're in Vancouver, all these things. She wanted to go to Yo Mama's restaurant. Like, Yo Mama's restaurant. She goes, I want mom to cook dinner. And I want this to be made. And all of a sudden, we ended up spending $150 on groceries instead of $10,000. We bought a few puzzles and a movie to watch, and we fulfilled their dream spring break without acquiring or leaving an environmental footprint, all because instead of judging, we were more curious. So there's one thing I think we like to leave with the idea, even with the Unshakable Foundation, with the Business Growth Initiative, it's about stay curious longer, even to ourselves. Asking, why do I need this, versus judging myself for having it. When we can make that mental shift of, I don't need to judge myself for having too many shoes, but I can question, do I need so many shoes, and what can I do next? And it's future looking instead of past looking.
I just spontaneously had to applaud that resounding conclusion and summary. At the end of the day, it's the kids that teach us. That's just absolutely fantastic. So normally we would wrap up with a few thoughts, and I sometimes even spontaneously call upon our president to close the meeting. So Steve, if you have a minute, you definitely can have the last word. But before that, if there's anyone that would like to share their thought for the day or their takeaway point, so anyone who hasn't yet spoken, do you have a takeaway point from today that you'd like to leave for posterity that you're feeling challenged or would like to speak? Hello. Hi, Corey.
Hello, how are you?
I have so many. Is somebody speaking?
Yeah, Corey and then Jenny.
2 years, just about 2 years ago, we combined a household. My husband and I were empty nesters, and we had children who lived in Quebec at the beginning of COVID. And they and their 2 children had lived there for 8 years, had a home, accumulated a complete ton of stuff, as you know what it's like, Lego. And they gave up everything to come home. They packed their lives in the back of a SUV and drove home.
Wow.
They left everything behind because it was just stuff, and stuff can be replaced, right? So in anticipation of them coming home, we had rearranged our house. Mama here had a bedroom, which was my gym and my closet and my dressing room. So that is now a children's bedroom. The other room was an office. We had ourselves had to declutter a whole ton of stuff, and we don't miss it. And we still have things that are packed in our storage that we haven't seen for 2 years. So here we find ourselves about a week ago thinking about, okay, now we need to do another purge because we need to build another bedroom in our extra area. So it's becoming a January habit. We start thinking about purging, and we start watching Marie Kondo again every January just to give us that incentive. And so here we go again. And I just retired 2 years ago because of COVID from the professional business. And I have a closet full of professional clothes. And here I wear my blue jeans and my t-shirts and my plaid shirts. I'm not wearing my skirts and my fancy pants and blouses anymore. So now I'm going to my closet, and I look at these clothes and they bring back such wonderful memories. So here we go. We're going to follow the Marie Kondo method and, touch them and thank them and put them in a bag, put them in the toss or the sell bag. And so it can be done by anybody. It really can. And it is such a good feeling. It really is. So that's our story.
Go ahead, Jenny. Thank you, Corey.
I would love to just read a couple of the takeaways that I have that are the bigger picture takeaways that Sarah and Tobin have shared with us. I just am thrilled, and I would love to have more conversations around the art of charity, investigating the why, conscious, and you referred to it as conscious shifting or engineering, conscious engineering. Studying other principles, diversify, being constant learners. These are all just resonating so much with me. Radical collaboration. I love it. I can't wait to get talking to you about the Arts Guild and the growth. And I want to find out more about your new business, business growth initiative. So exciting. And staying curious longer. I've written all of those down, and those are going in my journal today. They are just amazing concepts. So yeah, from my perspective, this was such a good beginning to so many more topics that are lifelong learning things to talk about. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. And I'd also like to invite Dinah, if you'd like to speak. Dinah, I know that life has been a constant series of adapting these last few months. So you'll be listening to the recording, I'm sure, but would you like to speak to how you're feeling about your January?
It's not really fair because I'm nowhere near any snow. Can you hear me? So I feel bad a little bit.
That's okay.
It's quite lovely here in Mexico. So you spent a lot of what do you call it, carbon to get here, but it's really good for our souls. We really love to come here. It's a small town, and we live pretty simply here. We don't have a car, and we walk everywhere, and we walk to the little store to get our food each day, and we have our bikes here, so we're riding. So it is quite a lovely way to spend a couple of months for us. So that's my, but we're also in the midst of purging because we're doing a renovation. So it's the forced purge, which I love to do. But also when you mentioned about Christmas, just one of the reasons I like to come here is to get away from Christmas, because I find it so commercial. I just cannot stand it. And I basically, when you talked about the kids being overwhelmed with receiving all those toys, I mean, I did it too with my boys, but now it's like, I don't want gifts, please, people. I don't want to receive a gift. I feel bad, but what do I do with that thing you gave me that I didn't even want? And so it just kind of makes me feel ill. So I have forbidden gifts in our house at Christmas. It's like food, do something, play, go somewhere, experiences, let's be together. But actual wrapped gifts, no, don't do it. And so that's been my, knee-jerk reaction to Christmas. And I wish we could get to the place where, we can turn off all the advertising, like buy a car for your wife for Christmas. It's just, to me, it's an abomination. And change our Christmases into, truly about family. But, some of us are definitely on that path, but we are truly bombarded by commercialism that says otherwise. And feel it's such a shame. So that's my rant. Anyways,
That's a very good riff.
I'm really sorry I was late. I was waiting to go on and I just screwed up my numbers in my head. So I will watch the recording. Thank you, everyone.
Tobin and Sarah? Yeah, Steve, would you like to speak to that? And of course, Tobin and Sarah.
I'm going to go quickly first because I have to go to practice here. But yeah, thank you, Tobin and Sarah. I totally did not expect to have this spiritual awakening by our two new Shawnigan Lake spiritual gurus. That was great. There's quite a few things that resonated with me. For instance, the non-attachment, that success is not material. And the 24-hour hold is something that I practice quite a bit myself. To say, sometimes I like purging myself. I actually derive quite a bit of pleasure from purging once in a while. I think it's a very fun activity, but from an environmental perspective, we have to think, well, what's the impact of all our purging, of course? Where does it go? So I think we have to think ahead and, like we talked about, actually not make the purchase to begin with. And I want to talk a little bit about the fact that comparing yourself to other people and getting stuff because you're doing a comparison is often a thing that happens in our psychology as well. And so I think there's a quote that I know that says, comparison is the thief of joy, which I think is just sums it up really. And you really have to think about your own place and trying not to have too much impact. And so then the last thing that I would like to introduce is the concept of eco-intelligence, which means that you think about when you purchase anything, how much impact has it had on our planet? So all the materials that it has taken to build or to make that particular thing. And so I think that's something that we need to get into our educational system so that people from a young age start thinking about that constantly, about anything they do, about anything that they purchase. What is my impact of getting this stuff? That's all I wanted to add. Tobin and Sarah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's been great to meet you guys. And I look forward to talking more with you.
I'd love to talk more and hear more with that. I like that you echoed it. Actually, I think I realize I have a habit of not liking the dollar store because of the amount of quantity that's there and the quality with the quick of breaking, and let alone the resources it took to get each of those $1 things there from an eco standpoint. I like that you referenced the the ego intelligence of looking at what is the impact of even getting this thing to my door. It's a strong thought. I really appreciate that. There's Neil Patricia's book, Happiness Equation, talks about we think we
work hard,
do, have, be.
Yeah.
We do this, we have this, then we get to be happy. But the whole idea is, what if we flip it on its head? What if we start with the end? What if we just be happy? How much more likely are we to have this and do this? But we start with this versus, and that's that mental, that's the consciousness engineering, is why do we have to work to be happy if we just start as happy?
And then then the stuff is just the stuff.
Yeah.
But I like
that.
yeah, Steve, thank you for that extra like juice to the whole conversation of that idea. It really is getting outside of I want this thing, but you know, how is deep does that impact go? And teaching the children to understand that, because we weren't taught that. So that's the best way to make the change, is to model it and to make them aware, because then it becomes normalized for them. And I think that's really important.
So to save you some bookshelf space, we'll give you the link to the Business Growth Initiative, actually to the Vancouver Island Business Resiliency Series that we're going to start hosting on Tuesday.
So just a quick little, shameless plug at the end of all this. Oh yeah, so we have a book summary library. Right now we have about 50 available. And so these are top business and personal growth books that we have partnered with the company Read It For Me. And so we have their book summaries, and they're done quite fun. We are just in the midst of a major changeover right now. If you go to our website, you will see that there's a 3 for free. So every week you get 3 book summaries that you get access to. This is good. What's nice, it's if you hit home again, you'll see that. There you go. I changed it last night. That's how fresh off the press this is. So this is the Business Growth Initiative, and we are a solution and action-based support group for small business owners and the self-employed. In our whole little spiel, there's a 3-minute video giving the idea of what our radical collaboration is. But when we started locking down more again and getting restricted, as soon as we saw the things come out, especially for gyms at January, we know as businesses how important January is for those big cut types of businesses. And so we were trying to figure out, I'll just hit enter on that. There we go. So there's the link. So we wanted to figure out a way that we can serve our local community. So one of my, I wrote out a couple of years ago when we were starting this idea of what this could possibly be, that I wanted to serve people globally, but acting locally. So I was trying to figure out, since we couldn't, get to go around, shake everyone's hand and be like, hi, we're here, how we could do that. And so now that we finally had a tool that we tested and that worked really well, we decided the Vancouver Island businesses, we just wanted to give it. So for the next 7 weeks, we are doing a completely free workshop series. And this isn't like nowadays, so one of our big things is, oh my gosh, market with integrity. So I'm really tired of being sold on a webinar that says, come to my 1-hour webinar and you're going to learn this. And then it's a 10 minutes of a little bit of content and 50 minutes of a sales pitch. So in our our workshop, it is 58 minutes of jam-packed content. You get to go through the process that we have we're actually giving you access to our collabs. So you watch a book summary, you make an action plan, you go in the breakout groups with the people with you, and then 2 minutes at the end, we'll let you know how, if you want to keep going after the 7 weeks, you can. But we really, really want to, rising, what is it? A high tide rises all boats, or one of those quotes, basically we want to help everyone feel less lost and have more answers and go ahead more quickly. My brain's.
Yeah, we decided we wanted to launch as soon as we heard of the further restrictions happening. We knew it was gonna be hard on businesses. We wanted to build business resiliency series.
So yeah, if you go to the link that we put in the chat, you'll get to see one of the book summaries about a book called The One Thing. And this book, actually, we just did it in the collab last week as well, and literally has changed the way that I approach my day and my business and my goal setting again. We've done this a couple times. So that book is there for you to enjoy. And then the list of books that we're going through the 7-week series. I also, one of my promises, because I always look at things of if I'm the person on the other end, what do I want? I hate signing up for one thing and then getting inundated in my inbox with a million others. That just, so I'm not going to do that to you. If I don't want it, why would I do it to you? So we're basically, when you sign up for the resiliency series, you will be on the resiliency series list. You will get emails only about the resiliency series. And should you want to do or know more, again, those 2 minutes at the end will let you know how. But it really is, we just want to help. We know as small businesses and entrepreneurs how hard it can be. And we're lucky enough to have each other to bounce ideas off of. I can't imagine when people are completely they're on their own. And maybe even we've had experiences where people are in families, they don't understand it. They think you're crazy. And so we want to be running your business is like a marathon. Actually, it's like an ultra marathon. It's an ultra Ironman. So we've decided that we want to be your water station. So we're here. Every couple of miles, there's a water station coming. And if you need it, come on in. If you don't, you're doing good, pass us by and we'll catch up with you at the next one. So that's Business Growth Initiative is kind of a quick little thing, and come and try it out with the Business Resiliency series. Please, if you know anyone else who could use it, share. We want to help. Like we've been sitting in our house for 2 years waiting to be able to get out and help.
We miss hugs.
Oh my God, we miss peopling. Obviously, we just blah, 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 but.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Tobin. I'm going to end on this wonderful, warm spirit of hospitality that you created in this online space today by inviting us into your life and your world and explaining your operating philosophy and how that relates to our topic today about resiliency, because it really does. Our footprint matters, and how we move through this life matters, the how and the why. So you're a natural fit for Rotary, by the way. They got their start as business leaders coming together to encourage one another and to do charitable works. Starting in Chicago, it was all about community sanitation and hygiene and putting in washrooms, right? So there's some very practical needs just like that here in Shawnigan Lake that our Eco Club's looking forward to jumping on board with, because we are totally plugged in and connected with the greater global resources that we have. So next Saturday, I'm putting in a plug on the recording for next Saturday, is our club assembly. And at that meeting, we'll be hearing from our district governor, Lorna Curtis, who will be opening up what grants and other initiatives, financial initiatives, are available to us from Rotary, so that we can start to spend wisely in Shawnigan, investing in Shawnigan, so for business to provide platforms for people to get their messages out there and to connect people, and to do that in creative ways, even during the tightest of restrictions. So I am so excited to facilitate that. And that's what we are, is we're community champions, we're facilitators, and we're always growing. So the invitation is out there to the both of you to check out what that could look like for time and resources and empowerment. So thank you very much. And for anyone who's listening to this recording, please visit our website, ShawniganRotaryEcoClub.ca. And also, we would love to hear from you by email at any time, ShawniganRotaryEcoClub@gmail.com. So I will stop the recording now.